from the Wall Street Journal. America's new political war pits young men against young women. A majority of men under 30 support Trump and Republican control of Congress, a sharp reversal from the 2020 race. Young women strongly favor Democrats. We'll pull this up. This is from America 2100. Will young men vote Democratic in 2024? Percentage identifying as Republican. In 2023, 49% of young men identified as Republican.
What was the age of the young men?
It didn't say.
Okay.
And then we have this here. This is, of course, what many people have seen. This is an old survey. 12th grade girls, overwhelmingly liberal, very few conservative. But for boys, it's inverted, overwhelmingly conservative. And then we have this from the Wall Street Journal, AP Votecast, showing that young men overwhelmingly lean Republican and women lean Democrat. So much less women Democrats, much more male Republicans, and men favor Trump and women favor Biden. I think that, I've said this before, and I welcome the ire from the feminists. This will not play out well for women, and men lead, and it doesn't matter what these women want or think. And the issue is strongly that men can wait as long as they want to have families. And so what's going to happen for a lot of these women, not all of them, and maybe even not a majority of them, but enough women are going to be approaching 35 with their doctors telling them having a child at 35 is considered a geriatric pregnancy and you are at risk. You need to consider that you're getting too old for this. And these women are going to be like, oh no. And the men are going to be told by their doctors, looks good, mate. Have a nice day. Come back when you're 40. So these young men and these women, they go on dates. And the woman's going to say something like Kamala Harris or whatever. And the guy's going to be like, not interested. I'm sorry. Look, I'm looking to have a family. I want to have kids. I want to buy a house and find someone that I'm going to be with. I'm not really interested in being with someone who holds these values that I think are detrimental to raising children. More importantly, a 35-year-old guy is going to be talking to a 28-year-old woman. And a 35-year-old woman is going to be trying to talk to a 35-year-old guy, and they're going to say, not interested. Guys, and I know the feminists, they get really mad about this one, and the left says, Tim's sexist. I'm like, okay, well, do whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you what the data shows. So this, I think, ultimately lends itself to more and more women are going to be childless. Men will be selective, but this will result in more conservative children, like we're already seeing, and then give it 20 to 40 years, and the Chelsea Handlers of the world will be alone and isolated from culture. It takes only a small percentage shift culturally for the entire surface of culture to appear one political ideology.
What happens when these women get artificial wombs and they don't need men anymore? It's just a bunch of single mothers with babies.
They're going to struggle to. It's same issue. It's going to be substantially easier for young men and conservative women to have families because the dad working and the mom raising the kid, and the mom does work too, but just, less so while she's having the kid, versus women trying to maintain birthing pods if artificial wombs even come to market in the next 10 to 20 years. Surrogacy is going to be out of reach, and many of these people just don't want kids at all.
Yeah.
So here's what I see happening based on the trends right now. And this is not accounting for variables. Chelsea Handler is coming out being like, I'm 50 years old and I can do drugs and wake up in the morning. And
as if that's the measure of happiness.
Well, but that's fine for her. That's fine for her. The point is, when 20 years from now, someone born today, what are they likely to be? Conservative or liberal? The answer is plainly conservative, based on birthing fertility rates among conservative versus liberals, based on trends among young people. If the next generation leans even 5% more conservative, the market shall provide. And so this woke stuff won't play because they're not going to get memberships and they're going to adapt to what the market wants. Chelsea Handler will find herself posting into the wind on social media, and people are going to be like, look, what you're saying is annoying and offensive, and it's not appealing to our customer base. She will be 70 years old being like, how did I lose touch with society? Why am I the odd person out? If 55% of this country says we want patriot content, then these companies like Disney, they just go, for every $100 we spend, how much do we make if we do liberal stuff? You might make $30. What if we do conservative stuff? 31? They'll go, okay, go conservative. You make more money.
I don't believe these statistics in general. I mean, I find that they are sort of not self-fulfilling, but propagating. They put these out to try to rationalize what they want to see in the market. But let's assume that it's accurate. I try to understand what is the brain pattern that results in women being democratic. Is it just the one litmus test of abortion that's become such a prevalent question that they engage in what is basically what Gad Saad refers to as like suicidal empathy? Like that, it's so important on that one particular issue. They will sacrifice the rest of their country through open immigration, through foreign wars. Like I try to reconcile the idea that they're empathetic, so it's based on empathy, and yet they support endless foreign conflict, which is the sort of, maybe that's uniparty but Democrat policy right now, the litmus test. The abortion is so important that's what young women.
It's that women are more susceptible to social pressures than men. That's it.
That's sexist, Tim.
I'm not.
It's true, right?
So
I'm joking. I don't know.
It is scientifically proven that women are more agreeable than men. Men are hard-headed and make decisions about what they want. Women are more agreeable and willing to work with the group. This makes total sense when you look at evolutionary biology. So what does it result in? Women are more likely to look at the dominant narrative from the media and say, it's better to just, fit in. And men are more likely to be like, no, I'm right and I'm going to do what I want. And most guys are wrong and crash and burn in economy or otherwise. But most women tend to be more average and aligned to the center. This is akin to the greater male variability hypothesis.
Well, you also have to consider immigration in your formula, because we do have millions of people crossing the border, millions of immigrants who want to stay and probably will stay. So that definitely shakes up the formula.
I disagree completely. I don't think that changes the tendencies between men and women. It'll have an impact culturally for sure, but it still results in very similar things. If anything, I actually think that would be more detrimental to the left. The right likes to makes to make the point that illegal immigrants, when they're granted citizenship, or new citizens, tend to vote Democrat in their first time around or whatever. I don't think that changes the argument around liberals don't have kids and conservatives do. You can say we're gonna have X amount of immigration, but how many immigrants are conservative versus how many are liberal? How many are religious versus how many are not? That's not being factored in. So I think mostly it's a moot point. And the question actually is, when you look at voting patterns, which includes immigration, liberals are having substantially less kids than conservatives and have been for 20 years, and that trend has only been exacerbated as fertility declines.
Right. You see that argument made by some people who refer to Israel, how Israel used to be pretty in middle of the road, but now they're growing even harder right because the conservative Jews are having more kids than the liberal Jews.
Yep. That's it.
So how long does it take?
But I think you're right that immigration was marketed to women as an empathetic thing. I think you're both picking up on this, because it's like, what did Biden come out and say? He said, we're going to grant a pathway to citizenship to people who are illegal immigrants who are married to a citizen, who've been, most of them have been here for 25 years. It's emotional. They're saying we have to be nice and we can't disrupt their lives, and never mind the fact that there are cons to illegal immigration. Don't talk about that. It's people fleeing to stable countries. You have to let them in. We have to do something. There's a reason it's called amnesty, right? Like it's sold to women as a humanitarian act, and women are susceptible to that. And I think that's one of the challenges of all of these issues, which is that men, I think, still feel a certain traditional pressure to do masculine things, to like provide for their families, to have children. Women are told to ignore a lot of their biological instincts, don't have children, delay having them, don't settle down. And so they're actually functioning very differently in society. You should look at, South Korea is a good example of this. They had a similar narrative going on during their last presidential election, where it was the conservative candidate supported by young men and young women supported the more progressive candidate, because they ultimately don't have the same goals anymore. It's not like everyone is trying to line up and achieve the same thing.
So to your point, 20 years ago, we were looking at, I bring this point up a lot, so I know people have heard it, but for those that haven't, liberals were having 1.43 kids, conservatives were having 2.05. Fast forward 20 years. Pew Research tracks the first time in 100 years that a generation has moved slightly more conservative on some issues. Traditionally, it was always a wave of this generation is 10% progressive, then 30, then 50, then 60, and then Gen Z.
Bill Clinton rocked the vote.
Then Gen Z comes around, and all of a sudden, they are comparable. For the first time, on average, Gen Z and millennials are comparable politics, but in some areas, Gen Z is actually slightly more conservative. Now, when this story first came out, Pew Research, I think it was from 2018, everybody on the right is going like, whoa, we're winning the argument with young people. I'm like, no, you're not. Conservatives had more kids 20 years ago. That means there is just generally more conservative children who hold these views their parents gave them. The right makes the argument that the left is trying to indoctrinate in schools, which is true, but the right is also at war on that issue as well. So I'd say that's a moot point. Give it 20 more years, and you're going to see the country skew a few percentage points towards conservative. And at that point, dominant culture, the pressures will exist. There will be a market for progressivism, but it will be a minority market. Stadiums, Coca-Cola, whatever, they're going to say, what's our lowest common denominator marketing strategy to maximize sales? And they're going to say, 55% of people identify as American-loving conservative patriots and 45 say other. And they go, okay, we'll go with the 55. We make more money.
That's it. It is interesting. And the going along to get along aspect of women or being more influenced by social media or those types of pressures would also explain why self-harm ideations on social media resulting from Instagram and whatever affects disproportionately or significantly more girls than boys. That's interesting. I hadn't actually thought about the demographic shift. I'm trying to apply this, although that's like my anecdotal experience. The family members that I have who have kids who are conservative-ish versus liberal progressive-ish, I'm noticing the gender issue, but I also thought it was more of the Andrew Tate influence. I can certainly see how...
people are talking about why are kids listening to Andrew Tate? And I've heard this from parents where they're like, my young teenage kids were watching Andrew Tate the other day. And I'm like, you're like a conservative leading family. You're not liberals. And, also it's entirely possible that liberal families become overbearing and the kids rebel or whatever. But ultimately, liberals infinitely more likely to have abortions than conservatives. Like, not literally infinitely, but like just substantially more. And conservatives just have more kids in general. So when you look at the fertility rate 20 years ago, I wonder if the fertility rates right now are taking into consideration abortion. I mean, probably they're just looking at how many children do liberals have. So that includes that liberals are just having tons of abortions.
And yet the child replacement rate is still pretty significant low and dropping even further.
For conservatives, I think it's like 1.8 fertility. And for liberals, it's like 1.
Something I've noticed, I wonder if you guys
less.
notice with your families, that a lot of liberal areas, if you're traveling through them, are anti-family. Like they just feel like kids aren't welcome.
Well, super pro dog.
Yeah. Super pro dog.
Or cat.
Super pro babies. Fur babies.
Fur babies.
I hate that phrase.
I mentioned this several times. I was flying through Chicago and the family restrooms have been turned into all gender bathrooms.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this. There's like a men's room and a women's room, and right in the middle it says all gender. And I'm like, I know for a fact that bathroom's always been. I used to work at O'Hare. They didn't build a third bathroom to accommodate, agender people. It used to be the family restroom with the baby changing station, and they just said demand is not for baby changing stations. It's for gender ideology in Chicago, so they switched it.
And there's baby changing tables in both men and women.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I changed a lot of diapers when my kids were born.
And I did too.
This is why they had family bathrooms.
Even
also,
when I had to put them on the sink.
And also one thing we mentioned too is McDonald's used to have a play place.
Yeah.
Like that's all going away.
Now McDonald's
this
are
family
like
oriented.
brutalist.
It is.
Terrible places.
Well, the employee list McDonald's where you go and you place your order on the screen and then go pick it up. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. And I saw one in a downtown Toronto at night.
Imagine if there was just one clown there.
There's a freaking LCD screen. You go and there's like one person behind the counter and I guess the people manually putting in, but there's no human interaction anymore.
Oh yeah.
And
the Taco Bell down the street is exactly that.
I mean, I don't like it, but also when your order gets screwed up, it makes it very difficult. And
no accountability.
But the other thing is,
accountability.
don't go into a McDonald's late at night in Toronto. Holy hell, did I think I was going to die.
There's already a video of someone ordering a McDonald's and a robot arm makes everything. There's people working there, but the robot arm goes over and then it like reaches down and scoops the fries and then moves them over. At the Taco Bell down the street over here, if you go in, there's kiosks and there's people working behind the counter. And you can walk up to the counter and wait if you want, but why would you? You go to the kiosk and you go boop, 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 enter, and then you watch them make it. That's the future. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.